first week. Our first week, let me just get rid of that there, is going to be more of an information overview orientation to the whole course. So we're not going to introduce any new material. We're going to tell you what we're going to talk about, how, we run this and all kinds of things. We're also going to introduce ourselves. And there's going to be, I think, 7 of us who are going to introduce ourselves, who are involved in preparing this course. Okay. So that's just saying that week 1 is orientation overview. Now, this course has changed every year. And in the past, we used to have 2 sessions, which were introduction and orientation. But this year we're kind of condensing that into 1 session because we wanted to make a lot more room for internal family systems, which we really expanded to 7 sessions. That's what people wanted. So to make room, we condensed some of the other material. So there's only going to be 1 orientation and introduction session today. So that's today. And we'll start by introducing ourselves. I'll introduce myself first. And then the other co-leaders will introduce themselves as well. We'll do that throughout the session this morning. Okay. So some of you might know, because I've met with a lot of you before, my name is Louis Clado, okay? And I've been doing this course for about 25 years. I've been extremely lucky that co-leaders have changed and that we've been together. This is our 3rd year together, I think. Right? So want to tell you, mental health is a serious subject, okay? But we also try to have some fun and be serious and have some fun. So the co-leaders met over the summer. And one of the meetings that we had, Lauren, who you can't see because she's on Zoom, she's at home, but she'll introduce herself in a minute. She said, I think we should all have nicknames. And we kind of go, oh, okay, that sounds like fun. And I said to people, you know what, I already have a nickname, right? And my nickname was Corporal Clado, all right? And I have to tell you where that came from. So when I was a little kid, I think I was about 6 or 7, one of the first movies I ever watched was The Great Escape. Anybody seen that movie, The Great Escape? Yeah, not many people. Well, it's a 1962 movie, right? With Steve McQueen. And the premise is this is like Second World War, and it's a prisoner of war camp. And these guys want to escape, right? But it's like this escape-proof camp. And the whole movie is about how they're plotting and they're planning to escape. And the climax of it, seeing the movie where the climax of the movie is really when Steve McQueen has a motorcycle, okay? And this is like an epic scene. He jumps over this really huge barbed wire fence. And, he kind of jumps over it, lands on the other side, and he escapes into the sunset. And, like all the other prisoners who haven't escaped from behind the barbed wire, they salute him. So, they salute him. And, that's kind of the end of the movie. And so it's a 1962 movie. I watched it, I was probably about 6 or 7 years old. And what I remember is that it had such big impression on me. The 2 movies that made the biggest impression was The Sound of Music, because I fell in love with Julie Andrews. And then, The Great Escape. But it had such a big impact on me, that movie, that when I went to school the next day after I watched the movie, the teacher was taking attendance, and instead of saying, yeah, here, I got up and I saluted the teacher. And so like all the other kids broke out laughing. They're kind of going, what's this? And the teacher didn't appreciate the laughter, so she sent me to the principal's office, okay? And then what happened was that when I came back and, for as long as I was in grade school, all the other kids called me Corporal Clado, and they would salute me, And so where this comes in is that when we were coming up with nicknames, I suggested, well, I already have a nickname. You can call me Corporal Clado, right? And but the rest of the co-leaders thought, you've been corporal for too long. maybe we should make you a sergeant right now. So my nickname is now Sergeant Simple. Okay. And then, yeah, I went, which is kind of like, I don't know if that was, they were kind of like teasing me, but anyway. I went home and I was very proud of my promotion and I told my wife, and so she said, well, I'm happy for you. Too bad I wasn't at the meeting because if I'd been at the meeting, I might have suggested an even bigger promotion. I think you should really be Major Payne. Right? So, yeah, I don't know about that, but okay. So that's me. That's introducing myself. And my role as a co-leader, even though over the next 8 months, you're going to see a lot of me up here, I didn't create this course, okay? Over the 25 years that I've been involved with it, it's organically grown, and it's grown from the contributions, mostly of the participants that have been in this course, but all the co-leaders. And these ideas that we've put together are gathered from a variety of different thinkers and people, psychologists who have contributed to the field. So what we've done is really, we're kind of caretakers of the course, and we keep it going. So I think by now I really feel that this course has a life of its own. It's kind of its own entity with its own personality. We're going to talk later on about internal family systems and parts and stuff. It's kind of like it's like that. If you imagine the course as the garden, then this garden exists because of all the contributions of all the visitors to the garden, of all the gardeners, which are the co-leaders, and everybody who's sustained, even including people we got the seeds from, and the soil and all that. So that's how I think about the course. And why does this garden exist? Why does this course exist? And I think so that we may heal and grow together. And what you and I are going to bring to this course is going to keep it going. And it's hopefully going to help it to grow and become more beautiful and complex garden than it's been in the past. So that's kind of how I see my role. And finally, my hope for the time we spend together is that this becomes, it may not be right now, like, I know we're a bit anxious, like all the co-leaders are a bit anxious, and it kind of, the nerves kind of go away after a little bit, but we want this to go well. That's why, we're a bit anxious. But we want this to become a safe place for you, where you feel understood and learn to better understand yourself. A place where you can relate securely to us and to each other. And while we might have different ideas and beliefs, we can share those ideas, beliefs, in safety. My hope is that the time we spend together helps us all to grow and heal as we strive to be, and I have to read this because I don't remember all of it, but it's the 8 C's. There's a lot of 8 C's, and we're going to talk about that in internal family systems. So we want to be compassionate, curious, clear, creative, calm, confident, courageous, and connected with each other. And when we get to internal family systems, this will make a lot more sense, the 8 C's and the 5 P's. Okay, so that's a little bit about myself. Now, you may already know that this year, and I spoke to some people that I met with, that we're going to record the sessions, okay? Now, I've pinned the recording on the presenter, so nobody who's here is going to be filmed, okay? And the idea is that we can put this on YouTube, and if people miss sessions or they can't attend the session, they can always view this on YouTube afterwards. Or if you want to see it again, God forbid, you could always do it that way, okay? We've always had time for questions and interaction, but we're going to reserve 2 times to do that because it's a little bit of a larger group. So we're going to do that just before the break at 10:30, and then we're going to do that at the end of the session at 11:45. And we'll stop recording for those periods so that whatever you contribute to the course is not going to be recorded. The other thing is, and we'll tell you more about this. So you probably know that this is the main course where we present the material. It's Wednesdays from 9 to 12. We'll also have Boeing. We'll talk more about the Boeing group, which is Mondays from 1 to 2:30. That's not going to be recorded, okay? Because that's much more, there's a lot more interchange between people. And the Boeing group, we'll come back to it, but it doesn't start until October 27th. And we'll tell you through the course of the day today what the Boeing is about. Okay. So, yeah, I already spoke to this a little bit. So, I think a big part of this course is people's active participation. But as you can imagine, if you have like a little bit of a larger group, and I'm so glad to see so many people here today. This is by far, we've been doing this at Avondale, I think must be like our 5th year probably. We're using the smaller rooms. I think it was kind of the effect of the pandemic. Not a lot of people wanted to show up in person. Okay, but this year there's been a lot of interest in people coming in person. There's also people on Zoom, obviously. But I hope that this is rewarding for you to come in person. But we talked among the co-leaders and we talked with participants last year, and we've had different formats of interaction with the participants. Like last year, for example, we said, you can ask questions or make comments at any point. The feedback at the end of the year was that was a little bit disruptive. So people prefer to have just set periods. Again, as I said, before the break and before the end of the session, 15 minutes. So you can still, if you like, if you're on Zoom, you can chat us your questions. Lauren will keep track. And then at the break, if you want to read your question or tell us your question, or not the break at the period session, you can do that. But we ask you to kind of hold your questions until those periods, okay? Here in person, you can ask them in person, or if you prefer to write them down, your questions, write them down, hand it to one of the co-leaders, put your hand up and say, I have this. And at the appropriate time, if you want to read it, great. If you want us to read it and address it, that's good too. Okay. All right. So very quickly, because we are going to introduce ourselves one by one. We're not going to do it right this moment. These are the co-leaders of the course, and there's also their nickname, and I think they're going to explain to you what you guys are like. Can you see it?
I know what
Oh yeah, it's not that. The top is kind of in focus, but the bottom is a little out of focus here. It's hard to get like the whole thing in focus. Okay, so they'll tell you their nicknames and if there's a story with the nickname as well. All right, so that's the co-leaders. Getting into the session today. So the session today is divided into 2 parts. And the first part, we want to tell you, sort of the rules, the times, the resources that we use, like the books and the website and the YouTube channel. So we want to give you information about just concrete logistical things like that. And then we also want to give you an overview of the course. Okay, so that's kind of the agenda for today. And what we're going to start with is that, if it was a smaller group, it'd be lovely to have people introduce themselves. But with a larger group like this, it's hard to, take us the rest of the morning for everybody to introduce themselves. So what we thought is, instead of having everybody introduce themselves individually, we're going to have a poll question. Okay. And do you guys have do you want to hand out the questions? So we're going to take maybe 5 minutes. This poll is ask you questions about yourself. It's a multiple choice question, ask you about yourself. Okay, so fill it out. Now, the people are on Zoom, we can give you the information right away, right? Because Zoom kind of compiles the information. What we'll do is, for the in-person people, your responses, we'll post them up next week, first thing. Okay, so you'll get a set. Can't do it this week because it takes too much work, but we'll do it first thing next week. So let's take 5 minutes and do the poll. Yeah. And then, yeah, if you want to, because I think that gives you, so you can do the results when people are done. Perfect. And then just do your section. Oh, yeah, you can dim light, yeah. I think it's bright enough now. Is that better? And you know how to scroll down.
Yeah. And then how do I get into it?
Sure.
How do I get this off and go back to this press escape? Or
And not X, because that'll take you out of. I think just end poll. And that will bring you back to the Zoom thing. Okay? Yeah. But if you have any problems, let me know.
no.
You said, Zoom is done, they open it.
Okay.
Who needs like another minute? Okay.
I can read the Zoom over. Yeah, we'll collect all of the polls and the in-person results will be displayed next week. So right now for online for the Zoom participants, I'm doing the simple course for the first time was 56%. I've done it before 44%. The second question, what best describes your current relationship to emotional dysregulation or deregulation? It very significantly affects my life, 62%. It somewhat affects my life, 32%. I am not sure what it is, 6%. The third question, how would you describe your emotional state at this moment? Calm and open, 33%. Anxious, 42%. Angry is 6%. Let me just see if I can get this down. Oops. Numb, 15%. Depressed, 12%. Hopeful, 32%. What is your biggest hope for this course? More stability in my life, 62%. Better understanding of myself, 62%. And better relationships, 55%. Question 5, which I overshot. Shot it again. Maybe Dr. Please help with this. I keep overshooting in 5.
Sorry.
I keep overshooting in 5.
Okay. All right, so let's do it like this way.
There we go. Perfect. Wonderful. Thank you. What best describes your previous experience with mental health resources such as therapy or groups? I've done courses or been in therapy before was 80%. I've read about mental health or used self-help resources was 10%. I'm new to all of this is 10%. I plan to attend the Monday 1 to 2:30 group in person, 7%, and that's the Boyne group. Attend the Monday group on Zoom, 30%. Not attend the Monday group, 13%. And attend the Monday group occasionally was 50%. All there. And then just make it small.
Oh, you're done?
Yeah,
Ah.
I just clicked in full.
Yeah. So.
Correct. Okay, so my name is Nicole Rogerson. I initially had something written down for the hope for this course, but it's currently used as a wedge on the sheet. So I'm going to fly by the seat of my pants here. So my role as co-leader is I'm skills and thrills apparently number 2, Jones number 1. So Joan and I will be presenting the skills out of the dialectical behavior therapy skills workbook. We'll do that pretty much weekly. There are some weeks which we won't be presenting skills, but we're hopefully going to be here for the next couple of weeks for sure. So my hope for the course is that participants leave this course feeling more empowered and equipped to handle their emotions with confidence and compassion. I want them to discover practical skills they can use in daily life to build resilience when challenges arise and to deepen their understanding of themselves. And to work on technology. Apparently that's also
I'm the
what I'm
technology
doing.
guy, yeah. Okay. Oh, we've
Can I
done,
offer a suggestion for for the two ladies that are doing the skills and thrills, Parker's Beauties?
okay. We wanna, Michelle, we wanna keep the suggestions to the,
Yes, I know, but yeah, so Joan and I, from participants who've taken the course previously, we tend to make some fun games out of the skills sometimes, just to change things up a little bit. So we're thinking, we're brainstorming, but yes, Barker's Beauties, maybe. We'll come up. Okay, some mindfulness, and then here's the skills and thrills number 1.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome. My name is Joan Flanagan. I'm a registered nurse, and I have worked in mental health for over 20 years. I've been a nurse since 1984, so for quite some time. And I worked with Dr. Clado and Betsy and Nicole at the hospital. And I think I've worked with you, Dr. Clado, since 2005, so quite a long time. And this is my 3rd year with the course. Yes. Oh, okay. Sorry, I'll do my best to speak up. That is a habit. I have a very quiet voice. I do apologize. My role as a co-leader is to create hopefully a safe and supportive environment where we can share experiences and learn skills and tools to enhance your well-being. And my hope for the course is to foster understanding, strengthen your resilience and self-care. And for us as co-leaders, we hope each of you finds something in the course that will enrich and empower your life. So part of the course at the start of each week, for particularly those people who are returning, you know that at the beginning of each week, we do practice sort of a mindfulness exercise, and that just helps us focus in on the day before we begin the course, just to kind of push out the outside world and be more present. So I'll give a little bit of information on what is mindfulness. So I think we can all relate in our day-to-day life when we get busy with things. We are, fairly distracted from the problems of our life. But when we aren't doing that, our thoughts tend to roam. Does anybody find that, especially at night when it's quiet, or first thing in the morning when it's quiet? I think that's when those more stressful thoughts can creep in. So mindfulness is learning the difficult skill of influencing the contents of our thoughts and feelings. And in mindfulness, we fill our mind with something that we choose to fill it with. For example, being present here today together, focusing on that, or maybe perhaps focusing on a walk out in nature, focusing on that, or sitting and watching a sunset. This morning, the morning sun is rising, and I can definitely see the light, but I definitely feel the heat of the sun coming into the room as well. So in mindfulness, the mind stays present with that one thing and does not roam. Okay. And that's all it is. It's learning to live in the present rather than time traveling and ruminating about something in the past or catastrophizing something about the future. So there are different practices in mindfulness, and meditation is one of those. And meditation helps us focus our attention by keeping it focused on one single object of perception, such as your breath. Or perhaps it's a positive mantra, like maybe you got this, over in your mind, or your bodily sensations. Now, mindful or meditation is something that is not for everyone. It can be really beneficial at lowering your stress and your anxiety and helping you be more present. But for people who tend to have a lot of worrisome, ruminating thoughts, or people who have past trauma, meditation can be a little more distressing. And let me explain why. If you think about meditation, you're focusing and quieting your mind. Some people who have trauma find that is when past distressing thoughts creep in. So they find meditation does the opposite. It doesn't relax them, it actually distresses them. And in those situations, we do encourage people to skip that. Okay. What we do find might be more helpful, though, in place of meditation is grounding. So what is grounding compared to meditation? Well, just to recap, meditation is a practice of training the mind and usually involves focusing the attention on your breath, a mantra, and it calms, makes you more aware. Whereas grounding is helps you bring your attention back to the present moment and is often used when you feel overwhelmed or distressed, but it usually involves using more things that you can use with your senses, things that you see, things that you hear, things that you can touch. Okay, and Nicole and I will talk about grounding techniques in the weeks ahead in the course and we'll give some suggestions and we'll practice together. We hope that with grounding techniques, you develop a few and put them in what we call a self-soothing toolkit to kind of refer to when you do feel distressed. The little illustration here on the page kind of highlights 6 ways to practice grounding. That's using your body, perhaps just here in the room or people on Zoom. At home, you can feel the seat that you're sitting on, or perhaps the floor beneath your feet. That is about grounding, feeling that. What does it feel like? What does it sound like if you tap your shoe, right? Or you could perhaps in the space that you're in, like here in the room, you can focus on maybe a picture on the wall and really focus on what the details of that picture holds. Okay, those are grounding techniques using your senses. All right. And as I said, the self-soothing toolkit and the mindful eating exercise, we'll be practicing that in the weeks ahead. If mindfulness exercises causes you distress, feel free to skip them. They're not mandatory. So when we practice that at the beginning of each week, if it's not for you, that is fine. Okay. But instead, you can maybe practice some of those grounding techniques from your toolkit that you have with you. Okay. So because this is week 1, let's do our first 5-minute mindfulness exercise. Okay. And the little caption below, mindful or mindful. So the goal here is with mindfulness is to give some space in your mind so it's not so cluttered and full. So usually we watch a video sometimes it's a guided mindfulness exercise that we will read through. Today we are going to, because it's our first week together, I'm going to read through a welcome mindfulness exercise and feel free to join along as I guide you through the steps. Okay, so I'll just read through that. And before we begin, I'll find a comfortable position, seated here in the room on your chair, and at home, if you want to lie down, feel free to do so. Whatever feels safe and grounded to you. If you feel comfortable, you can gently close your eyes. If not, simply lower your gaze or soften your focus. Take a moment to arrive. Notice that you are here in this space with this group. You don't need to do anything right now. There's nothing to fix or figure out. Just be. Let your attention rest on your breath, noticing the in-breath and the out-breath. You don't have to breathe in any special way. Just notice the natural rhythm. Feel the breath as it enters through your nose or mouth and gently leaves your body. Now bring your awareness to your body. Can you feel the support beneath you? Your chair, the floor? Allow yourself to settle into that support, trusting that you are held. If it feels okay, gently scan your body from head to toe, noticing any areas of tension, ease, or simply neutral sensations. There's no need to judge or change what you find. Just notice, just allow. And now, gently notice whatever emotions are there. You might feel calm, nervous, curious, or something unnamed. Whatever is present is welcomed. You don't need to push anything away. Just for this moment, give yourself permission to be exactly as you are. Breathe in. I am here. Breathe out. I allow myself to be here. Let's take a final moment of quiet together. When you are ready, gently wiggle your fingers and toes. You can open your eyes if they were closed and come back to the room. Welcome to the group. You belong here, and we're glad that you are here too. And that brings us to Betsy. Thank you.
Hi, my name is, can you hear me? My name is Betsy. Can you hear me now? Okay. And I've had the pleasure of working with some of you in the past. I'm a social worker. I've been a social worker for 22 years. My role as co-leader is stealthy supporter, which I think beats out, what was the other one?
I called
Emotional.
you the emotional support bouncer, which I do like better, but I get it.
Okay, so my role is to help for those who at times can feel overwhelmed or distressed with the material. I'm happy to take you aside into another room or to go outside with you and work with you to help you through that. My hope for the course, I just wrote this down, expanding our understanding of ourselves. It's a great opportunity. and difficult as well.
You have to.
Oh, I did reading. Oh, geez. Okay, what do I hit?
Here.
I don't want to wreck it.
Okay.
Oh, I know. Okay, your intentions for the course. Setting an intention involves consciously deciding what you want to focus on or achieve in a particular area of your life. It's about clarifying your goals, desires, or feelings, and aligning your actions and mindset with those aspirations. This practice can be done in various ways, such as through meditation, journaling, or simply taking a moment to reflect. When you set an intention, you're not just wishing for something to happen, you're actively committing to a mindset or a course of action that can help you manifest your goals. It can be as specific as wanting to improve your health or as broad as seeking more joy in your daily life. The key is to be clear and positive about what you want to invite into your life. Take a moment now to think about and set your intention for the next 32 sessions, which we'll spend together. Write it down, remind yourself of your intentions every time you do the course. If you would like, you can share your intentions with us during the question period. How to set intentions. Step 1, get to the core of what you really want. Spend time reflecting. Keep asking yourself why. Step 2, use the power of visualization. Visualize what it'll be like when your intention becomes reality. Step 3, choose language that supports you. Spend time crafting your intention. Step 4, create an intention setting ritual. Make a plan for taking time to call your intentions to mind. Step 5, reinforce your intentions. Make sure you're keeping your intention at the front of your mind. Step 6, sit back and relax. Let the universe take care of it. Intentions are not about control. Step 7, revisit your intentions. Intentions change, and that's okay.
All right. Yeah, so far, I mean, we've kind of introduced like big topics that are going to be recurring throughout the year. And one is mindfulness. Mindfulness is an essential part of this course. And setting your intentions, knowing what you're here for or what you want to change. We'll be touching on that a lot as well. Okay, so we'll spend a lot of time on this, but Lauren seems to be kind of a motivator in coming up with nicknames and acronyms. So I remember Laura and I were talking many years ago, probably about 6 or 7 years ago, and we said we have to come up with an acronym, and we came up with SIMPLE. And what it stands for is that, so this course is going to be very structured. Okay, we start on time. I'm kind of like a fanatic for structure. I think because I'm like naturally disorganized, I need structure in my life. So you'll see it's like very, very structured. And like the sessions are structured, material we present is structured. I think that helps you to understand. Try not to make it vague. You can get lost in that. And the I stands for integrative, because it integrates a lot of different approaches into one course. So we're not just exclusively cognitive behavioral therapy or dialectical behavioral therapy or internal family systems or trauma approaches. Where how do you kind of bring all those together? Integral, I won't go too much into that, but integral, there's Ken Wilber is a philosopher who came up with this thing called integral theory, which I really like. In past sessions, I indulged more. I talked more about it. In past years, I mean, this year, I'm not going to go into that. I mean, it's interesting. We'll touch on it sometimes. Idealist, I try to put in as many I's as possible in there. Idealist refers to a more kind of, it's a philosophical position. And most of us are what's called philosophical materialists. Okay, our society is very philosophical materialist, which means it's not like materialism that we want to have possessions and have things, but philosophical materialism means that what we think is fundamental in the universe is matter, like atoms or subatomic particles, and that's what's fundamental. That's what exists, and then that consciousness, because we all experience consciousness. Consciousness arises from matter, but matter's fundamental. Consciousness is derivative from matter. So that's called a philosophical materialist or physicalist position. All right, and you'll get a lot of this through the course. So my position is more of a philosophical idealist, which says that no, it's not. No, what's fundamental is not physical matter. It's not atoms. It's consciousness. So I won't get into that too much, but we'll spend some time. And the major religious traditions are all philosophical idealist, because God is like a thought. So mindful. So the M stands for mindful discourse, because mindfulness, what it is paying attention. So in this course, what we're going to be, Joan was saying that when you do meditation, you become mindful of your breath, right? Meaning you focus your attention and you don't kind of let go. If your attention goes away from the breath, you bring it back. Or you can be mindful of the present moment. And where mindful is really important for this course is that what do we want to be mindful of? We want to be mindful of our thoughts, our feelings, our behaviors, and our sensations. So we want to develop mindfulness because we want to be aware of those four things, right? Because if we're going to change, we need to kind of know what they are. So that's where mindful comes from. Psychotherapy, and that is learned easily. It's kind of a little bit just saying, you know what? We try to make this as simple as possible. It's not obscure. It's not kind of like, but hopefully, if you know the 6 tools and you know the skills, it'll make sense, right? So for me, it's really important because sometimes, people can be a bit vague or obscure about things. It's really important that everybody understands this. It's accessible for everybody. Okay. It's also, this is a recurring theme, is that a lot of psychiatry is biological, meaning they focus more on neurotransmitters and on changing brain chemicals with medications. So that's a biological, even diagnosis is very biological. Psychology tends to be more psychological. So they have theories about how the mind functions, like cognitive behavioral therapy or dialectical behavioral therapy. In this course, we try to have biology, psychology, but we also acknowledge that societies we live in are really important in who we are, right? And spirituality is probably not for a lot of people, it's not something we talk a lot about, but it has a deep influence on who we are and how we feel. So we try to bring in all those aspects, as you will see in the course. Okay. And this is another thing I won't go into a lot, but so who is this course for? And I think my answer is that this course is anybody could really benefit from this course. Okay. Now, if you're functioning really well, you're really happy, you don't have any issues at all, probably you don't need to take a course like this. But I don't know many people like that. Like, certainly I'm not like that, right? And so anybody who has human struggles, right, and wants to understand themselves better, benefit from this course. And emotional dysregulation is a term I really like, okay? Because I think everybody, it's not like either you have it or you don't have it. So either you're emotionally well-regulated or you're emotionally dysregulated. I think we're all on a spectrum. So some of us are more emotionally dysregulated and some of us are somewhat a little bit towards the better regulated spectrum. But what emotional regulation, and probably a lot of you know this already, what it is that, so, being emotionally regulating is having the right emotion at the right time. It's, if you're emotionally regulated, you're going to experience all the range of human emotions from sadness to anger to anxiety, all the range, right? But it's the right moment. So those things are happening now and you have an appropriate emotional response. Okay. Now, thing is, like a lot of us, we're responding in part to what's happening in front of us. But a lot of our emotions also have to do with our past. So emotional dysregulation is when, and we're going to talk a lot about this in this course, is when our emotional reactions are influenced not just by what's happening in the present, but they're also significantly influenced by how we were raised, our temperaments, what happened to us. All right. We always think that it's about the present, right? But what we're going to learn in this course is how much it's not just about the present, it's about the past. And we need to know that and understand where that comes from, so that we can change. And we can kind of still have emotions, but the past doesn't have as heavy an influence on us. Okay, on what happened to us. And that's growing and healing. All right. So, all right, now this, I think, back to you, Nicole. Oh, and the sun is now.
Before you start, Nicole, can I quickly just interject? Peg and I do attendance here, just like you all do attendance in the room. And for privacy reasons and attendance purposes, it's very important that your name on the Zoom is either a name that you have previously sort of arranged with Dr. Clado or your actual name. If your name says Zoom user or iPhone and there's no way to identify who you are, we will need to eventually boot you out of the Zoom just for privacy reasons. So Peg has messaged you if this applies to you. Please get back to her if you're having trouble changing your name, just so that she knows who you are, and then we can sort it out from there. And I'm so sorry to interrupt.
All good. Thanks, Lauren. So what do you need to do to do the simple course? So the simple manual, I'll go grab that quickly here. This is Dr. Clado's book, or Sergeant Simple's book. The Dialectical Behavior Therapy Skills Workbook. This is by Matthew McKay. It is a second edition. So there is some pre-reading that we'll discuss each week that you'll need to do for the previous week that you attend. So this book is, you can write in it, which is wonderful as well. So this is a core book. And then the Internal Family Systems Workbook as well, but that will be discussed later on in the new year, which is a lovely book as well. So that's, like I said, that's nothing urgent that you need in the next couple months, but you'll definitely need it in the new year. A 3-ring binder. For those in person, you can see it wedged under the screen there. Access to the Simple website. So it's simple2021.com. You'll find all of the PowerPoint slides under the header News. You click that, you'll find the registration forms, you'll find all of the tools, and all of the PowerPoint slides, the videos, everything is there. So if you're having trouble accessing that, reach out to the email and one of our facilitators will help you with that. Access to It's Simple on YouTube. So Dr. Clado, was it last year? The year before? You don't? Yeah, has come up with a YouTube channel as well. So another resource for people to access. So all the sessions are there. I mean, every year we kind of revamp things, but certainly the course material is on YouTube as well. And then the pre-recorded sessions this year is new. And your active participation. So at no point will one of the facilitators say, oh, does someone have an example, and point to you. But we do love when course participants either volunteer to do some of the skills and tools, but certainly there's no obligation. So there's the lovely 3 books that you'll need. Like I said, the Internal Family Systems Workbook will be something that we discuss more in the new year. There's the 3-ring binder. So preferably, if you want to separate it, if you get separators from the dollar store, it's good for each week. You can have it with you each session so you can make notes. You can use it to keep your weekly homework and crisis plans. We'll discuss crisis plans. It's one of the first things we get into this year. Diary cards, you'll have lots of handouts with those, chain analysis, and any other things you want to add to. Most importantly, across all different therapy models, the most important predictor of positive change is the client's emotional engagement with the work. Certainly, a lot of people we hear says, oh my gosh, I'm so overwhelmed. But you know what? Take it at a pace that you can do and you feel successful with. Try not to get overwhelmed with it. There is lots of course material, but certainly being present and just taking in the information can sometimes be a goal in itself. So meaning you'll get the most out of the course if you actively emotionally engage in it. This includes doing the homework, reading about the skills, tools, strategies, theory, and optionally reviewing the PowerPoint presentations and YouTube videos ahead of the sessions. And those are all on itsimple2021.com under the news. Intentionally and mindfully applying the tools and skills you are learning in the course in your day-to-day life. The benefits you'll get from the course are proportional to the effort you put in. So do the homework, try to stay organized, and practice, practice, practice. Simple cost resource. And here's numero uno.
Yes. Neat. I will try to speak loudly. Okay, so I'm not going to read through every point here. I know Nicole talked about the website. It's Simple 2021. If you click on that in your search engine and you see a lovely, beautiful orange and white cat, you're on the right page. The email for the course is itsimple2023@gmail.com. So use that email if you have questions you want to submit. If you want to volunteer for one of the practice sessions, just email that to that email address. On Wednesday mornings, on Wednesday mornings before the group will review and answer questions, comments, and feedback that were emailed to us from the prior week. When appropriate, we may address these questions, comments, and feedback live at the beginning of the session. So typically, if we get an emailed question, we'll put it on a slide and we'll kind of review that at the beginning. And if time permits and if appropriate, we will address it live as well. Unfortunately, at other times in between sessions, we cannot guarantee that we will always answer your emails, but we'll do our very best. You can also email us if you want to volunteer for an in-class practice, and I'll talk a bit more about that in the coming slides. Nicole talked about the YouTube channel that Dr. Clado has developed. Just so you know, this is the address for it. If you have ever logged on to YouTube, there's a little search engine there. And if you put in Dr. Clado, it's simple, you're not going to find the slides. You know, we tried that ourselves, Nicole and I did, and you got all kinds of cartoons, and it was very difficult. So this is the address you put in the search engine. It's Simple on YouTube. 1123.
Do you have to put the period at the end of it?
No, not necessarily. And if you click on it, this is what you should see, is in the illustration there, Dr. Clado with the title, Welcome to the Simple YouTube course. That's when you know you're in the right place. It's Simple on YouTube, 1123. If you have trouble finding it, please let us know and somebody will get back to you. The nice thing about the YouTube channel is that it goes into more depth what might be covered in the in-person course here or on Zoom. But if you missed a week and you don't know what was covered, go ahead and check it out. Also, as Dr. Clado shared, we are recording all the sessions. Those recorded sessions will be found on the YouTube channel. Right? This is the schedule for the year. I'm not going to read all those dates. There are 32 weeks in the course, including today. I just want to highlight there will be no class for 2 weeks over Christmas. And again, in March 11th and 18th, there's no course. And the last week will wrap up on June 3rd. And again, each week, this slide kind of highlights all the topics that we'll be discussing. I'm not going to review that in detail, but there's that information. This can be found on the website. It's Simple 2021. You can find this slide. What is new this year is we're going to do more sessions on internal family systems and trauma. And I just want to note, as Nicole said, it's in the new year. So week 21 will be introducing internal family systems. Some more topics for the weeks. Now, this brings us to the volunteer piece. So every year we ask for volunteers to help us demonstrate how the tools and skills are used. These are called practice sessions and are done live in front of the group at those set times. And what volunteers have shared with us in years past is they have found this experience to be extremely meaningful, powerful, and healing for them. And course participants have found it so helpful and so seeing, you know, because they can identify themselves sometimes when a volunteer is sharing their experience and how to apply the tools and what they're doing. They found that extremely helpful and appreciate that time to learn and share together. So in order to prepare for these practices, volunteers will meet with Dr. Clado for about 90 minutes the week prior to the practice session. So on Wednesday, and right now it's about 1:30 in the afternoon. And if you want to volunteer, you just simply submit your name to the email address and Dr. Clado will contact you and set up that meeting. There will be 10 practices this year. Last year, I think we had 6. And 4 of those will be dedicated to internal family systems, I believe. The last 5 practice sessions will work on the internal family system and the Wise Mind remediation procedure. To volunteer, as I said, you should be willing to work with us through the internal family systems workbook. These are the last 5 practices involving stage 2 trauma work. Stage 2 trauma is about processing and remembering. Okay. If you volunteer for these, it's important that you learn and can use some of the emotional regulation skills, like that self-soothing toolkit. This is when that will be important to have. Okay. If you'd like to volunteer, as I said, please let us know by email. It's simple2023@gmail.com, and we will take volunteers on a first come, first served basis. And here, this is the schedule for the practice sessions. If you note, our first session will be on October 29th, which will involve crisis plans. So to prepare for that, the volunteer will meet with Dr. Clado on October 22nd at 1:30. So consider that. It's very, very powerful. Speaking of the volunteer for October 22nd, we will practice the first tool, making your own crisis plan, on October 29th. If you'd like to do this, you'll meet with Dr. Clado to prepare on October 22nd at 1:30. And those are held in his office at the medical building at 444 Durrell Street. That meeting usually takes about an hour and a half. And then again, just email if you're interested. And then Dr. Clado also told you about the BOING group, just to review. BOING stands for Breakout Informal and Graduate Group. And it's open to anyone, either by Zoom or in person. There's no need to let us know if you're coming or not. It's a drop-in session. So if you're available, consider coming. You feel free to leave if you only have a half an hour, that's fine. But the focus of that group is to work on the material that was discussed and for you to ask questions and get assistance and support with what the homework involves. It's held at the medical building at 444 Durrell Street on the second level in the large boardroom. It's right at the top of the stairs or as you come off the elevator. First Boyne group will be on October 27th. They'll run from 1 in the afternoon to 2:30. So for about 90 minutes. So October 27th will be our first Boyne group. You can join by Zoom if you can't come in person, and it's the same link that you use to join the Wednesday group. And finally, unexpected events. Well, sometimes we're hoping not this year. There's some internet issues. Most of the time they're temporary and we are able to resolve within a few minutes. So we'll let you know if that's happening. If you notice, if Zoom can't log in, we'll try to fix it as quickly as we can. If the internet cuts out for an extended period of time, we will continue with the in-person session. If it's bad weather, hopefully we won't have the winter we had last year. We had quite a bit of snow, but in the case of bad weather, we will, if the church is open, we will be here. If the church is closed, we will not. But how do we get to notify you? Somebody will tell you and we'll post it on the website. So if it's a blustery day out there and you're not sure if we're running group, just check the website and we'll post an update. No group today. Yes.
We'll try to do that half an hour before,
Okay.
because we might not know
Yes.
a lot of events.
Yes. Yes. So we'll do our very, very best, especially if you're driving from out of town. We don't want you risking your safety by getting here. So if you have to miss that week, please, that's okay. That's okay. There, it's time for Kate.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Kate Smith. My role as co-leader is Highlights and Insights. That's the name that I was given. I took this course for the first time 3 years ago, and I was a participant. And it was so transformative for me that I wanted to become part of the team that shares the material with others. So that's why I'm here today. I give a summary of each session at the end, and I highlight the key points. So if you're not great with taking notes or you're kind of confused, you're not sure what was like the takeaway for the session, I will type up everything in a little summary, and Peg will help me by emailing it out to you every week, just so that you have that. My hope for the course is that I can continue to give the participant perspective on the course. And if you have any questions, or if you're struggling, not sure, you need some advice, then come talk to me. I can tell you what worked for me. These are the participant agreements. The code of conduct agreement for all participants. Everyone in the course will strive to interact with others in a kind and respectful manner. We will strive to validate, avoid judgments, and assume the best about each other. Personal information, including names, should not be discussed with anyone outside of the course. What happens in Simple stays in Simple. Participants are encouraged to arrive on time and stay until the end of the session. Participants are encouraged to do the assigned homework between the sessions. If you're doing the course in person and become ill with a potentially transmissible condition, please do the course virtually over Zoom until you are well. And if you need the Zoom link, please email us. Active participation is encouraged, but not necessary. You don't ever have to say anything. Don't be worried about getting picked on or pointed at. But we do encourage participation at the allotted times. During discussions, participants may provide examples from their own experiences. Please keep in mind, however, that discussing some subjects such as traumatic relationships, self-harm, suicide, substance abuse, etc., may trigger others. So you can also save this for the Boyne group, which is much more in-depth. If in-person course participants need to leave the room to take a re-regulation break, please let the facilitators know. Betsy would be pleased to help you. Course participants are encouraged to not engage in dysregulated behaviors with other participants outside of the course. Course participants are encouraged to avoid forming new romantic relationships with other participants for the duration of the course. Pre-existing relationships are okay. My husband is sitting right there. Course participants are strongly discouraged from attending sessions under the influence of drugs or alcohol. If you're doing the course in person, please legibly write your first and last name on the attendance sheet as you come into the room. And if anyone has been missed this morning, please let us know at the break. If you're doing it virtually, please enter your first name and the initial of your last name on the screen. The alternative participant agreement. I recognize that how I treat others is as important as what I learn in coursework. I examine my assumptions before speaking. I use I statements as opposed to you statements. You are making me angry. And so say, I'm feeling angry. I refrain from blaming, shaming, attacking, or discounting self or others. I come from a place of empathy rather than judgment. I agree to disagree and move on. I work to not get trapped in trying to persuade others to my way of thinking, right fighting. I seek to understand those who differ with me by holding space for multiple points of view. And I commit to learn about myself, my history and personal legacy, and I tell my own story. This is an agreement for Zoom participants in particular. Please mute your microphone when you're not using it, or else we'll all be able to hear what's going on with you. Please keep your camera on. You may turn it off during PowerPoint slide presentations or if you need to step out of the group, but it's important that we see each other so that we can establish trust and ensure confidentiality. Please make sure that no one at your end who's not taking part in the course can see or overhear other group participants. When you have questions, comments, feedback, please raise your hand icon and wait until one of the co-leaders gets to you. These are in particular to the venue, Avondale United Church. Our hosts, Yvonne at the front desk, Roger, the custodian, and Reverend Keith Reynolds, the minister. Feel free to bring a drink or a snack, but please clean up after yourself. If you're ill with a cold and have been in contact with someone who is, we strongly encourage you to attend the course on Zoom, or if you have to do it in person, to use a mask and hand sanitizer. Please write down the Zoom meeting number and password in case you lose the link. They're right there on the slide. No smoking is allowed on the church grounds, not just 12 feet. But from this room, the sidewalk and road is just out there. Please, if it's wet or snowy outside, bring a pair of dry shoes to change into. We'll leave our boots at the back door. Or if you come in that way, they have mats along the back entrance. The Avondale Church is a scent-free environment. And please sign the attendance sheet when you arrive. There will be a reminder slide posted at each session. If you have questions, comments, or feedback, raise your real or virtual hand. We'll take note and get to you at the appropriate time, which is the 15 minutes at the break and at the end. Keep comments, questions, and feedback relatively brief, so everyone has a chance to participate. One breath sharing on Wednesdays. One breath sharing is take a breath in, share your thought. If you go to take another breath, maybe it's time to stop and let others have a chance. Please avoid side conversations. They can be distracting. If you're on Zoom, make sure no one can overhear what's being said. For reasons that will become clear later in the course, please avoid giving advice to other participants about what they should or should not do. Validation, encouragement, and understanding are, however, very much appreciated.
Okay. So how are you holding up? I don't see anybody asleep yet, which is a good sign. Are you still with us? Great, okay. So I think we'll do this and then we'll break, because I think we're doing okay for time. I think this is like an important slide for our first session. Because it defines some terms. I found this really interesting when I learned about it. So what this slide is about is really about defining the terms health, pain, suffering, illness, disease, sickness, disorders, and conditions. Because we kind of use them without thinking too much about them, but they all mean different things. So, I think this will be interesting for you. So pain is a physical sensation or emotional experience that signals harm or distress. So pain can be short-term or acute, or chronic and long-lasting. Is typically a direct response to injury, illness, or other physical conditions. Pain is a biological signal that something is wrong, prompting individuals to take action to protect themselves. So that could be psychological pain. It's telling you something, it's a signal, not to be ignored. Okay, suffering. So pain and suffering, will be contrasting them. Suffering is very different from pain. Suffering is a broader emotional and psychological experience that encompasses the feelings of distress, anguish, or hardship that arise from pain. So it encompasses pain. Pain is part of suffering, right? But in addition, but also from other sources such as loss, disappointment, or existential concerns, suffering can occur even in the absence of physical pain, and it often involves a deeper, more complex response to life's challenges. Pain and suffering are often intertwined, but represent different experiences. So I didn't put that in there, I'm surprised. But the difference between, and we'll talk about this, is that pain it's the experience. Suffering, there's also an added judgment to it. Things such as, I can't stand this is awful. And when you have pain plus judgment, we're going to talk a lot about radical acceptance of pain, which makes it better. But suffering there's also a lot of resistance to the pain, which adds to it. And, a lot of people, they're either in chronic physical pain or psychological distress. And when you add the judgment piece to it, it makes it even worse. So one of the things we can do, it's not going to take the pain away, but if we can be more accepting of it, it'll be better. And there's lots of evidence. I'm not going to go into it right now, but we'll go into this in more depth in the future. It's kind of a premise. There's this approach called mindfulness-based stress reduction. Some of you might know about it. That's the whole premise, is like more acceptance of the stress. Okay, so now this is where it gets interesting. What is the definition of illness? Right? And it's very different than the definition of disease. And this is important. So illness is the feeling or experience of unwellness. So as long as you feel it or experience it, that unwellness, you're ill, okay? Which it's entirely personal and inferior to the person of the patient. Often it accompanies disease, but the disease may be as yet undiagnosed, as in the early stages of cancer, tuberculosis, or diabetes. Sometimes illness exists where no disease can be found. So illness refers to your experience, right? So if you go to the doctor and you're not feeling well, whether it's psychological or physical, you're ill because you're not feeling well, right? Not the same thing as disease. So what is disease? Disease is the physical pathological process or deviation from a biological norm. There is an so this is, I've taken this from a World Health Organization pamphlet. That's why I used that language. So I'm reading from the pamphlet. There's an objectivity about disease which doctors are able to see, touch, measure, or smell. Diseases are valued as essential facts in the medical model. Traditional medicine is not very good at understanding or caring for illness in the absence of disease unseen to the clinician. Okay, so diseases, if you're ill, right, you're not feeling well, and you go to the doctor and he does tests and he finds that, oh, you have appendicitis, or oh, you have like an infection somewhere, right? Or you have an autoimmune disorder, right? Now they found an objective disease that goes, it might explain to a large degree your illness. You're not feeling well. Okay, that's pretty good. But what happens a lot, and often this is something people that experience more chronic or long-term illnesses, they're not feeling well. They go to their doctor and they have, they might have a lot of different tests, right? But the doctor says, I can't find any disease. And people feel invalidated sometimes because, no, I'm ill. But in fact, like you're talking about different things, right? Sometimes you feel like because there's no disease that the doctors found, may just be that they didn't perform the right tests, or it's something that the disease we don't yet know about, right? It's obscure or rare or something. But that is and then it doesn't help that a lot of family doctors only have a few minutes to be with you. So you never kind of really tackle that, oh, you have no disease, but I'm ill, right? And they're not the same thing. You can be ill and I can't find something. Do we keep looking? Do we just say, well, some illnesses, and a lot of illnesses, very difficult to find a disease that goes with them. Not because you're not ill, not because there's not something going on with you. And the psychosomatic illnesses are ones that fall into that category. They're illnesses. And when you hear psychosomatic, you go, oh, they're just dismissing me. But what it means is that we really don't know a lot about psychosomatic illnesses. And we'll get into that in the course later on. Okay. Now, this is also important because the terms we use illness, okay, so subjective experience of not being well, disease, which is an objective finding on lab tests or x-rays, okay? And then there's sickness. Okay, those are three terms we kind of confuse. And what is sickness? So sickness is more a social role, a status, or a negotiated position in the world, a bargain struck between the person henceforth called sick and a society which is prepared to recognize and sustain him. What does that mean? So if you're on sick leave, okay, it means that your employer has recognized that whatever's going on with you merits you receiving support. Okay, now, very different, right? Because you could be ill and you might not be accorded the sick role. Well, just keep coming to work. This is nothing. Okay, and you might be ill and not. There's a disease that's found. Okay, you might have a disease and not be accorded the sick role. So next time if you're dealing with these issues, keep those differences in mind because I think they're important. And we'll come back to this. So now psychiatric, psychological, or mental disorders and conditions are characterized by clinically significant disturbance in an individual's thinking, emotional regulation, or behavior. They are usually associated with distress or impairment in important areas of functioning. So I talked earlier about biological psychiatry, which is the most common form of psychiatry. If you see a psychiatrist, most likely they're going to be biologically oriented. They're going to diagnose you. And so you have major depression or generalized anxiety disorder or whatever. And in biological psychiatry, mental disorders are seen as chemical, physiological, or biological problems. Okay, so I think psychiatry wanted to be respected because what happened was that in other fields of medicine, people were really making headway in identifying a lot of diseases like diabetes and heart disease and infections. So that was the biological model, which is in medicine, doesn't kind of capture all that's going on in people's illnesses, but it is helpful, right? Great advances. And then psychiatrists are like, we want to do the same thing. So then we kind of, all right, let's have a biological model. And you know what? Like if people aren't well, then it's because there's a chemical imbalance. All right. Now the problem is that that's not very clear that that's true. Okay. At one point early in my career, we kind of identify things very, very kind of neatly. Now it's kind of, no, it's not like that. So I don't think really psychiatry is ready for the biological model. We're not at that point. If you break a bone, you can see it on X-ray. You can't see what's going on in people's brains or biology that well. We don't have that. So, okay. We will argue in this course that by embracing the disease model, psychiatry neglects the social, psychological, and spiritual aspects of illness, without which we cannot fully understand most people's experience. So that's why we bring all that in. To understand people, can't just try to understand what's going on in chemical imbalances, right? That could be like a part of it, maybe. We don't know that much about it, but you have to see it from these other perspectives, but we'll try to bring in those perspectives. Okay. So, Peg. I keep having to bring the screen forward because the sun is essentially, and let me just there.
My name is Peg Hutland and I am Zoom in the room. Quite often I will send all of the emails, the mass emails that go out. So that's kind of my role. My hope for the course is just to support you all with whatever you need. And then I click the arrow. So there's a hole in my sidewalk, a central metaphor in the course. I walk down the street, there's a deep hole in the sidewalk, and I fall in. I'm lost, I'm helpless, it isn't my fault. It takes forever to find a way out. I walk down the same street, there's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I pretend I don't see it, and I fall in again. I can't believe I'm in the same place, but it isn't my fault. It still takes me a long time to get out. I walk down the same street, and there is a deep hole in the sidewalk. I see it is there, I still fall in, it's a habit. My eyes are open, I know where I am, it is my fault, I get out immediately. I walk down the same street, there's a hole in the sidewalk, and I walk around it. And I walk down another street. And that's a poem by Portia Nelson. So Portia Nelson's poem, There's a Hole in My Sidewalk, is a powerful reflection on self-awareness, personal growth, and the journey of life. The poem describes a process of encountering the same challenges repeatedly, illustrating how we often fall into familiar patterns of behavior, thoughts, or emotions. In simple, we use the hole in the sidewalk metaphor to represent the maladaptive behaviors of thinking, emotions, and behaviors that people may repeatedly encounter in their lives. And that can cause great distress. In the course, we will start by helping you identify some
holes in the sidewalks, are holes for short, that you repeatedly fall into. We will then encourage you to become familiar with these holes, what might cause you to fall into them, and how to get out of them. We will see how when we are all in these holes, we're typically in our emotional mind. We will learn how to use our rational and wise minds to get out of and eventually avoid the holes.
So I think it's about 10:30. So why don't we take a 10-minute break? Let's come back about 25 to 11 or thereabouts. Oh, sorry, I apologize. I forgot. This would be a good time. Do you want to do questions before or after the break?
I just wondered.
Yes, where the bathrooms are. So there's 2 bathrooms back here. Okay, I think there's 2, right? Okay, and if those are busy, there's also bathrooms at the front. Okay. But there's trees outside for the guys, okay? But just a question, do you guys, do you want to do the break first and we'll do questions after? Why don't we do that? Because I think people just want to get up. Okay, let's stop the recording for now and okay. All right, let me read that, because I think sometimes I want to just improvise, but we kind of spend a lot of time on these slides, and I think we do so because we try to really be clear and synthesize things. So let's see, let me start reading that. So our lives unfold in very different ways, right? And one of the things that we'll be trying to talk about, and being a psychiatrist, I'm fascinated by, how the course that people's lives take, right? And sometimes, it's going this direction, but sometimes it takes a sharp turn, right, in another direction. And so what happens? What are the things that affect your life? Why do our lives unfold the way they do? So our lives unfold as they do because of the interplay, obviously, of many, many different things. So the circumstances we're born into. So if you come from a really emotionally healthy, well-off family, it's very different than if you come from a family that really struggles socioeconomically and emotionally. Okay. Random events that occur, right? Things we can't control. And also relationships, how that affects us, but also social systems, the system we're born into. So if we're in Canada, very different than if you're in the US, right? There's more supports. If you're in Scandinavian countries, very different if you're in third world countries. So that goes into making us who we are as well. The cultural moment we live in, our biological makeup, and spiritual and existential orientation. All of these combine in unique ways to shape each person's personality and life path. So there's so many different forces, right, that affect us. So much of life happens to us and is out of our control, right? Sometimes we really feel that. Now, personality, in this course, we're going to come back to this over and over again, but it's defined, this is important. Personality is the long-term patterns of how we react emotionally to things, how we tend to think about things, and how we behave, right? Because if I ask you, well, what's your friends or your spouses or your children's personality, you're going to give me a description. But what you're going to describe is how they react emotionally to things, how they behave, and how they think, right? That's what personality is. So the personality develops as the interaction of who we are at birth. So that's obviously very important. We're each different temperamentally. Some people are neurodivergent. Some people are very neurotypical, right? So that matters a lot. And the other thing is, contributes to our personality is what happens to us. The kind of parents that we have, sort of events that we go through, trauma. So those are the contributors to personality. So how we respond to what happens to us is determined by our personality. So stuff happens, okay, but each person is going to react differently. And we react differently because of our personality. And that, our personality, greatly affects the trajectory of our lives. Right? So if you react in certain ways to things, things can get worse. If you react in other ways, they can get better. Right? So it's this complex interplay of things that are not in our control, right? But I think sometimes we feel that I can't affect, like, this is happening to me. There's nothing I can do. But what we're talking about in this course is that what we do, if we change maybe aspects of our personality that may kind of make things worse for us, if we change those aspects, actually that can make things better. That's what this course is about. So how we respond to what happens to us, which is determined by our personality, also greatly affects the trajectory of our lives and can mean the difference between whether we flourish, we survive, or we fail to thrive. Right? So it's not that we control, and it's not that bad things can happen to us, but we do have some influence. And that's because of our personalities, how we respond to the world. And that can make a huge difference. And I see that, as a psychiatrist. So metaphorically, personality can be thought of as the armor. So if you think of medieval knights, they wore an armor, right? Personality is like our armor, protects us from the slings and arrows that life is constantly throwing at us, okay? The thing is that each person's armor varies in its effectiveness of how it protects them. So people don't choose their armor. You don't choose your personality because there's so many factors that play into it, right? It's not a choice, right? But because personality protects you against the slings and arrows of what happens, and personality can make the difference if you respond in certain ways, you can help to thrive, right? And if you respond in other ways, again, it's not something you control. But if you respond in other ways, you can struggle, right? So sometimes the armor is more protective, sometimes less protective. Personality, what shapes it and how we can change certain aspects of it is a central theme of this course. So over the next 8 months, we're going to explore how personality develops and is affected by biological, psychological, social, and spiritual factors. We're going to consider how temperament, which is like the way you come into the world, all right, and neurodivergences. We'll talk a lot about that. Attachment patterns and trauma, social forces such as inequities, economic pressures, and the impact of new technologies, from smartphones to social media, impact our lives and affect our personality. Okay? Because sometimes you leave some of that stuff out. I've been reading a book by Jonathan Haidt called The Anxious Generation. Anybody read that book or see that book? Jonathan Haidt is a social psychologist, and he's been very interested in the impact of social media on Generation Z. And this book, The Anxious Generation, and he's an academic, so it's very well supported by arguments. This book is frightening. I mean, social media was kind of this experiment that we just kind of stumbled into, right? Without giving it much thought. But, Jonathan Haidt, like, if you read this, it's way worse, the effects that it has on our health, way worse than smoking. Okay? It's an addiction. But it's horrible. And, we're kind of not that aware of it. But I think a lot of us are addicted to social media. I know I am. Right? I kind of struggle to put it down. I get home, it's like, oh, I mean to read. I want to read my book, but I pick up, social media. And I'm aware that, oh my God. Okay. So anyways, all those things we're going to talk a little bit about because they're all important. So understanding ourselves and the many forces affecting the course of our lives is in contrast to a deficit and symptom-based medical model. So symptom-based, like, oh, it's just depression. Let's fix your chemicals. Okay. This is what we're going to talk about is far from that. It's not that simple. That's like a simple model. But life is complex. And what we're going to talk about in here is very complex. That's why it takes us 8 months to talk about it. Right? So I think it's like this understanding that can shift us from automatically reacting to what happens to us. So from reacting, what we're going to move to, reflecting on it and acting wisely. So from reacting to reflecting, that's the course. That's the journey of this course, right? Because most of the time we just react, but we're going to hopefully learn to reflect more, because that can mean the difference between failing to thrive and flourishing. Yeah. So we're starting this 32-week, and I added it up all together. So if you attend all the sessions, 32 weeks, and you also come to the Boyne group, which is an hour and a half a week, we're going to spend 144 hours together. Okay, that's like 6 whole days, 24 hours, 6 days. Okay, so we're going to get to know each other a bit. All right, you're going to be sick of me. Maybe not as much as the other leaders, because I'm the major pain. Right? So I'm hoping this is going to give you new perspectives, skills, tools, strategies, and possibilities that is going to allow us to live with greater awareness, intention, and in greater peace. That's the kind of goal for the course. Let me read that one. I think we're okay for time because we're here time. I talked about this a little bit earlier. There's a big contrast between the medical model and what's called the patient-centered model. Okay. So in the medical model, let's say you take an issue such as substance abuse. So in the medical model, if you're diagnosed with a substance abuse problem, that can be seen, the substance abuse can be seen as one of the main causes of your problems. So if you go and see, psychiatrist, substance abuse, you focus on the substance abuse, how do you cut down? Okay, that's the medical model. This is the problem. Problem is your substance abuse. For example, someone drinks heavily, then loses their job, damages relationships, and they suffer health consequences. So the focus is on the substance itself as a driver of all the ills in their life. Treatment in this model, so the medical model, is usually, it aims at removing the substance, stopping the drinking or drug use, because the assumption is that this will solve most of the person's problems. That's the medical model, identifying, things like substance abuse. The medical model is about asking what's wrong with this person. And in that case, concluding it's the substance abuse. Now, contrast that with what we try to do in this course and what I try to practice, and I think people I work with try to practice that as well, which is, it's called patient-centered model. Okay, what is that? How does that contrast with the medical model? So the patient-centered model takes a wider lens. Instead of seeing substance abuse, take that example, as the cause of that person's problems, okay? It sees this at one piece, the substance abuse is one piece of a much bigger picture or puzzle, okay? So substance use is often a symptom or correlate of deeper struggles, not the original cause. So people abuse substances because there's a bunch of other factors. That wasn't like the only problem. There's lots of other things that have contributed to that. Okay, so What leads someone to use substances may include their temperament, for example, being more sensitive or impulsive to begin with, okay? You didn't choose that. The quality of their early attachments, you know, your relationship with your parents, family culture, social environment, the stresses and inequities they face, the availability of support programs, and many protective or aggravating forces during the formative years. That's the patient-centered model. So this is not just the problem. You have to have a bigger, wider lens and understand this is more complex, okay? So from a patient-centered perspective, the substance use is not the starting point. It's one outcome of a complex web of influences. If we only focus on substance, we risk missing what's essential for this person, okay? The patient-centered model, instead of asking what's wrong with this person, which is the medical model, it's a substance abuse, patient-centered model says, what happened in this person's life that made substances serve a purpose for them? So what happened to this person? That's the approach we're going to take. So this approach, patient-centered approach, doesn't ignore the harm of substances. It is harmful. It's a maladaptive coping, which makes things worse, right? Because we said what we do, you know, we don't choose, but it can kind of like keep us going in that direction, or we can change, right? So it's not harmful, but it's not the only cause. And it's important to understand that. So it doesn't ignore the harm of substances, but it recognizes that healing requires us to understand and address the whole person and the whole context of their lives. Okay, so that's kind of, I think, the mission statement of this course, is that it's a patient-centered as opposed to a biological model. Okay, so having said that, giving you an overview of the course, I'm going to focus, I'm not going to take a lot of time because we have more stuff from other co-leaders to introduce themselves. But let me give you a brief overview of the material we're going to cover in the course, okay? So the simple course aims to help us identify, become more aware of, get out of, avoid, and repair some of the holes in the sidewalk we keep falling into. Okay, so that might be, substance abuse might be a hole in the sidewalk. But again, we come at it from a patient-centered perspective. It's not, this is the only problem in your life, okay? But let's focus on it. And let's find out what's behind it also. That's what we do later in the course. Okay? Internal family system is a really good way of understanding in depth why somebody might, for example, abuse substances. I'm just kind of picking on that example, but there's like 1,000 other holes in the sidewalk you might fall into that aren't substance abuse. Okay? That's just like one I'm fixated on today. So the course aims to help us, first of all, expand our window of emotional tolerance. You're going to hear that term a lot. Okay? Raise your hand. Do you know what window of emotional tolerance is? Anybody put their hand up? Okay. So some people do. Okay. Let me just very, very quickly. So people have, everyone in the world, humans, animals as well, we experience different physiological states of what's called arousal. Okay. The ideal state we like to be in if things are okay outside of us, we like to be either calm or alert. Okay, because that feels good. When you're calm or alert, nothing is happening, no bad things are happening to you. That's a good state to be in. Calm or alert is what we call being in the window of emotional tolerance. Okay, now we also have states where you become very activated. Okay, you call that fight or flight. So when things start to, when there's a threat, there's a danger, you go from calm or alert, you go into fight or flight. Okay. Now that's okay if there's bad things happening. Problem is, a lot of people who have emotional dysregulation because of their lives, because maybe a temperament, neurodivergence is a bunch of all those factors. What happens is that even when there's nothing immediately threatening them, they feel threatened. They're in fight or flight. Right? People next to them might be calm. Yeah, there's nothing going on, but they're in fight or flight. And they may not understand that this is a response to their lives and their past and their traumas and their attachment and all that stuff. And they might think, oh, this is really about the world. So that fight or flight is outside the window of tolerance, okay? And what happens is if you, so this is physiology, you can be like a little bit in fight or flight. It can get worse and worse, and we're going to talk a lot about this in the course when we talk about physiology and trauma and stuff. But you can get so aroused, so much in fight or flight, that your system shuts down and collapses. And then it collapses into what we call, well, it's collapse, freeze, dissociation, or depression. Okay, you just shut down. And so dissociation, depression, freeze is also outside the window of tolerance. So fight or flight is outside the window of tolerance. Dissociation, depression is outside the window of tolerance. But people who have mental health issues, you know, sometimes they have trouble accessing calm. Their nervous system just doesn't want to go there because of, you know, what happened in their life. So the first part of this course, expanding our window of tolerance, is how do you experience more calm and alert in your life? How do you, if you're fight or flight, or if you're freeze, dissociated, depressed, what do you have to do to experience more calm? So that's called emotional regulation. Okay. And that, believe it or not, that's doable. Right? You can experience more calm or alert in your life using the skills that we're going to talk about. So that's the first thing that the course aims at, expanding our window of emotional tolerance. And the DBT workbook, it's about that. All those skills are about that. And the tools are about that as well. Then the other thing is that, see, like expanding your window of tolerance and being calm or alert, it's not enough. Because what happens is that people have trauma, or if they have attachment issues, that is in their bodies. And just learning to be emotionally regulated doesn't fix the trauma or attachment issues that live in your body. You also have to address that. Right? So that's another goal of the course, is to heal trauma and attachment issues. Okay? And the third piece of the course is that how do you, because you need to do those things in order to live a full life. So those three things: expanded window of emotional tolerance, healing trauma, and living a full life, they're all part of trauma work, okay? And part of what we do in this course. So just want to tell you that, okay, this is a long journey. You know, we're going to spend 144 hours together. At the beginning, like especially today and the next few sessions, probably going to feel overwhelmed. It's like, oh my God, there's this so much. Don't forget that we're going to spend a lot of time together. We're going to go over some of the same ideas in different ways, over and over and over again. Okay. And you don't have to learn everything. There's people, like I think 44% of the people in the course have done it before. So some people have done it 2, 3, 4 times. And it's not like, you know, you can learn all of this in one go, right? Now, what you learn in, some people learn more, some people learn a little bit less in one go. But, you know, the typical thing that I hear from people is that, oh, I learned a lot the first time, but you know, the second time, I learned even more, right? Because this is about life. You keep learning. And I say to people, I've done it 25 times, and I learn something new a lot every year. Okay? So you can do it 25 times and keep learning. You never stop learning this time. Okay. So very quickly, simple course is divided into 6 parts. So we're going to cover a lot of psychological theory. Okay. We're going to learn dialectical behavioral therapy skills. We're going to learn 6 tools. We're going to learn to use 5 techniques and strategies that you need to use the tools and skills. Okay. We're going to practice. Those are the practice sessions. We're going to practice together how to apply this to people's lives. So you're going to do that on your own for homework, but we're also going to do practices with the group, with volunteers, okay? So that you consolidate. In the book, there's examples of how you use it as well, okay, in the manual. And then the sixth part is we're going to use internal family systems to heal trauma. Okay. Okay. So psychological, let me just a couple of words about psychological theory. These are, I'm not going to go over each of these individually, but those are some of the topics we're going to cover. Okay. Last year we had 3 foundations of the simple course. And that was very, people are going, what? We're kind of lost. Okay. And the feedback was like, make it simpler. Okay. So this year, to make room for other stuff, I condensed all that. I think I made it a lot simpler, and it's only one session. Okay. The foundations we cover in one session. Foundations of what we're going to talk about. And that foundations, what we're going to talk about is where, we talk about where emotional, rational, and wise mind, what they are, and how they evolved. Okay, we're going to talk in one session. We're going to talk about personality, temperament, character, attachment theory, and talk about something called dynamic maturational model, which was also challenging. I've also changed it. I think it's easier to understand this year. We're going to talk about stress, the stress, post-traumatic stress spectrum, dissociation, internal family systems, and so on. That's the theory we're going to cover. Okay. Now, DBT skills. That's what Joan and Nicole are going to cover. And if you've heard about DBT before, there's new versions of DBT where they cover a few other modules, right? But the traditional modules are distress tolerance, which is like when things are really tough, when you're in a crisis, what do you do not to make it worse? That's tolerating your distress. We're going to spend a lot of time. That's like the longest module of the course. We're going to spend a lot of time. That's where we do crisis plans as well, right? They're really useful. Mindfulness, we talked about that. So that's learning to listen to yourself, learning to observe yourself, your thoughts, your behaviors, your emotion, your feelings, right? Being tuned in, because that's really helpful, necessary. Emotional regulation, so how to stay in the window of tolerance. And then interpersonal effectiveness. So how to have healthier relationships by being assertive rather than passive or aggressive. So we're going to, all this, we're going to assign readings to you guys. So you'll read ahead a little bit. You don't have to, because we're going to cover in the course. But if you read ahead, you already have an idea of what we're going to cover, right? And it facilitates learning. So I'm going to track skills as we learn them, because there's a lot of skills. And DBT Workbook suggests using the DBT diary card. Joan and Nicole are going to talk about this. It's in your second edition of the workbook. It's not in the first edition. In the second edition of the workbook, pages 262, 265, keep track of all the skills you're learning. However, we're kind of saying, maybe don't do that. There's another way. We recommend using the skills list that we'll provide you with to keep track of all the skills that you're learning. Doesn't matter, you'll see, so this is like not absolutely essential information. Okay. You're not going to have to learn all these skills. This is just, that's that list, the DBT diary card from the DBT workbook. We're saying, maybe don't use that, but you can. It's not fabulous. And this is our own list of all the skills we're going to cover. So those are all the distress tolerance skills. There's 26. Those are all the mindfulness skills. There's 24. We're only going to introduce a few at a time, and we're going to explain them very thoroughly. And you don't have to know all of them. Most people use like 5 or 6 of all of these, right? They don't use all 100 and whatever that there are. But even to use a few that are really useful for you can make a huge difference. So don't be overwhelmed that there's so many of them. You don't have to use them all. Those are the emotional regulation skills. And those are the interpersonal effectiveness skills. We're going to cover them all. You're going to pick your favorite ones to use. Okay? Learning the 6 tools. And the 6 tools, this is not in DBT. I think this is like it really facilitates learning and something that we kind of brought together for this course. So we're going to start. The first tool we're going to use is crisis plan. Hopefully everybody will have a crisis plan. You'll learn when do you need crisis plans, what they're good for, how to practice them. We're gonna cover that in detail. Then, we're gonna talk about Hole's diary cards, second tool, rational mind remediation, fourth tool, chain analysis, the third tool, rational mind remediation, the fourth tool, Hole's diary cards, and wise mind remediation. Can you hold on?
Permission to speak, sir.
Okay,
Can you just slow down? You're talking, it's so fast, I can't follow the words.
okay, I'll slow down. Okay. So thing is, these tools, the 6 tools, we introduced them throughout the course. The last tool, which is wise mind remediation, is a session 24 or something, it's right at the end. So we paste them, but they build one on another, right? Maybe the crisis plan can be independent of the other ones, but after the crisis plan, to do a chain analysis, you need to be doing Hole's diary card. Do rational mind remediation, you need to do a Hole's diary card and chain analysis. And they're not like very difficult to do, right? And we'll kind of talk about how you do them here on the Wednesday. If you're struggling, you don't understand, come to the Monday. We can show you how to use it. We'll do the practices to reinforce how to use the tools. Okay, so you should have a good idea of how to use the tools. And the thing is that at the beginning, when you're learning this stuff, it's important to use the tools. But after you've done this enough, they become part of you. So you do them automatically. You don't need to do them explicitly, but at first you need to do them explicitly. Okay, so don't try to do them automatically at first. Do it on paper, follow the format, and then once you're comfortable, you can just do it in your head. Okay. So to benefit the most from the course, you must use the tools with the skills. Wise mind remediation is complex, compatible with internal family systems, and can be used long after you've finished the course. All right. Learning techniques, strategies needed for using tools and skills. So those are the 4 or 5 strategies that we're going to use. Good problem solving. Don't worry, we're going to come back to this. We're going to cover in detail. Be mindful of your dashboard. Not going to cover it now and come back to it. Stay in the window of emotional tolerance. Stay in the window of emotional tolerance by pendulating. Use editing, splicing, and pasting with problematic thoughts, feelings, or behaviors. Practice new ones. Those are techniques and strategies. Don't worry, it doesn't mean anything unless you've done the course before. We're going to cover that in detail. I'm just kind of going over, all that we're going to talk about. Practicing applying skills, tools, and strategies in everyday life. That's the 5th part of the course. So during the year, after introducing a new tool, and as we go through the IFS workbook, we're going to schedule in-session practices with volunteers. The goal of practice is to help volunteers and the other participants understand how to use the skills, tools, and strategies in their lives and in real-life situations. Again, I know I'm repeating this, but if you'd like to volunteer for practice, please let us know using email. And I already said this, but again, so if you volunteer, you have to be able to meet with me previous week on Wednesday around 1:30 in my office, because we prepare before we kind of do it together. And it's kind of like I do it with you. And, it's, I think as Joan said, people really appreciate it. And it's kind of like at first, I'm going to be really nervous, but most people, it's fine. And we make it really easy. And people are so appreciative. People who did it last year, they know that that's how it goes. Okay. So, and then using IFS to heal trauma. That's that IFS manual. We already talked about how there's 3 stages in trauma therapy: emotional regulation, processing trauma, reclaiming your life. Dialectical behavioral therapy workbook. So this one, right? It deals mostly with number 1, emotional regulation. The internal family systems workbook is more about processing trauma, right? So we tried to do both. Yeah, there you go. Just before I stop, and then we'll have another co-leader. Just want to say that this is what's new in 25-26. So this is more for people who've done it before. These are all the changes we've made. So in response to feedback from last year's participants and suggestions from the co-leaders, we've made some significant changes to this year's course. So one thing is one orientation introduction session rather than two. Okay, so we condensed it. One foundation of the simple course session rather than 3. 10 practice sessions rather than 6. So last year when we had 6 kind of volunteers coming up and working with me, this year we're going to have 10 because we're going to do IFS as well. What Kate didn't mention is that you're going to be a big part of that because we spend a lot of time in the summer working on the IFS workbook and how to incorporate it into the course. So yeah, I mean, you put in a huge amount of work for that. So that will be exciting to do that. So there's going to be fewer slides in each session. So I'm trying to kind of cut down because sometimes it was like, way too much slides, ran out of time. I'm going to try to do fewer slides. I'm still going to put all the slides on the website, but I'm not going to present as many just because, I can start speaking very fast, right? And then it's like, yeah, not good. I'm trying to use simpler language in the slides because I can get pretty geeky. And we're asking you to email your questions that you'd like to see discussed prior to the Boeing Monday group. So if you plan to come to the Boeing group on Mondays, it'd be nice if you emailed me questions that you'd like to focus on in the Boeing group, because that way I can kind of already prepare a little bit. We're going to have a totally different format for the Circle of Meaning session, which we've had for 2 years, but it's going to be different. Much more emphasis on trauma processing with the internal family systems part of the course, expanded from 2 to 7 sessions. Sessions will be recorded, so this is being recorded. We'll go back to the old format of having 2 interaction periods per session rather than having interactions at any point in the sessions. We're using a different room. Last year was a much smaller room. Kate's role has expanded. And so this is all because of their feedback. So we're hoping you can keep giving us feedback. All right, now we go to Eyes in the Sky.
That's me. Hi, everybody. I'm Lauren. I am the mental health navigator at the Stratford Family Health Team, and I've been involved on and off as a co-leader of the Simple course since I first started with the Family Health Team in 2018. And along with Peg, I'll be helping to manage the Zoom side of things. So we'll be managing recording the Zoom, sending out the polls, troubleshooting the best we can with tech issues that might arise, monitoring the overall Zoom experience and fielding questions over Zoom. I'll also hold an informal debrief session over Zoom at noon for anyone who wants to stick around for a few minutes. And the idea of that is that happens naturally for people as they're filing out of the room in person. So we wanted to give that opportunity for the folks that participate on Zoom as well. And my hope for the course is that the participants on Zoom feel the same sense of community and get just as much out of this course as the participants who are in the room. So that is me. Right. And so we're going to talk about accessing and benefiting from mental health care. So getting out of, learning to avoid, and repairing holes or developing and implementing solutions to our problems can be challenging. Challenges can arise around realizing there is a problem, having a good understanding of the problem, deciding on which approach is best suited to working on your problems, and accessing mental health professionals to help implement the approach. Obstacles to developing and implementing solutions to problems may have to do with the person seeking to change, mostly with accessing the right resources, and understanding and dealing with these obstacles is essential in benefiting from mental health care resources. So I'm going to talk a bit about personal and systemic obstacles to change. There are slides available on the website from 2024, 2025, if you want to have a more detailed consideration of these obstacles. So some things that are discussed are, am I the problem or is the world the problem? That's that idea of internal versus external locus of control. The stages model of change and motivational interviewing are things that are kind of discussed here in terms of better understanding what you do have control over, what you don't have control over, and that just sort of central question of, am I the problem or is it the world around me? Things that are covered in these slides include understanding the problem. So diagnosis versus formulations. So when we talk about mental health diagnosis, that sort of thing, a discussion that actually comes up a lot in terms of mental health is, when is it valuable and important to have a formal diagnosis, to sort of have that label and kind of understand what that means, versus formulations of how the symptoms you're experiencing are affecting your life. And I think that's a big overarching discussion in general. We won't get deep into that right now. What will help and who can I trust? Coping with limited resources, dealing with competing priorities, and believing one can change. So self-efficacy, learned helplessness, locus of control, these are all things that we can kind of, we will be touching on and exploring further. Obstacles participants often encounter in the simple course. So 1 out of every 3 people who attends at least one session of the simple course stops coming. And so here are some of the reasons some people have shared. Sometimes people feel better and feel they don't need the course anymore, or they're feeling worse and can't really find the motivation, hope, or interest needed for participating. They may feel their problems are too big for a course like this, or that what they really need is individual therapy. They feel that simple is not a good fit for their issues, their attention span, or learning style. There are changes in people's schedules, new commitments, or changes in circumstances. That's obviously if Wednesday mornings no longer work, that's a reason somebody might not be here anymore. Or they experience general discouragement. So if I have to do all of this to change, change is impossible, or what we've talked about so far is not working and nothing will ever work. And sort of those thoughts kind of take over. Some people feel that 3 hours or 4.5 hours, if you attend the Boeing group a week, is a big commitment and other things get in the way. People might miss 1 or 2 sessions and feel they're too far behind. Or people feel they can't be in a room or in front of a screen for that period of time. People feel the material covered is too difficult to understand. The format the material is presented in is challenging when people have trouble with attention, concentration, or having atypical learning styles. And I guess one piece of feedback was that the co-leaders are boring. Obviously not me. Participating in the course, the material, what the co-leaders say or how they say it, and other participants might trigger strong emotions that people want to avoid, such as hurt, anxiety, anger, grief, sadness, or hopelessness. Or combinations of several of the things that we've listed. And I'm just gonna, quickly say, with all of those things, I certainly want to validate all of those because they're very, appropriate responses. But I would say if you are experiencing if one of those reasons crosses your mind and you're not sure this group is for you, please don't hesitate to send us an email with some of those concerns. With some things, we might be able to make some adjustments. We can certainly offer some reassurances. I think the key reason we want to share this is that if you are feeling that way, you're certainly not alone. And we just really encourage people to give yourselves grace, take in what you can. And, a lot of people do this course multiple times before they're really kind of grasping everything, and that's okay.
Thanks, Lauren.
Thank you. Back to you, Kate.
Do you remember the button?
Yeah. So some stuff to keep in mind when you're sharing in the group or if you're feeling triggered. At some point during the course, you will be triggered. And this may happen frequently. Being triggered is an unpleasant experience that we all want to avoid. Emotional triggers are experiences such as memories, situations, certain objects or words, people, etc., that spark intense negative emotions, and these emotions can arise abruptly. People with emotional dysregulation frequently have narrow windows of tolerance, like Dr. Plato explained, and they frequently experience intense emotions. Our minds tend to blame the triggering events for causing these intense emotions. This ignores the fact that being triggered has less to do with the triggering event and more to do with our psychological struggles that the triggering event reveals. If you are triggered, the automatic reactions to being triggered include withdrawing, anxiety, attacking in anger, or numbing out, dissociation. Rather than withdrawing, attacking, or numbing out, which is often the repeat of the previous experiences you've encountered, we encourage you to observe and reflect on your emotional reaction. This is more likely to help you widen your window of tolerance and to heal. When sharing in the group, course participants are encouraged to share their feelings and thoughts in the sessions. Participant contributions are generally considered by most participants to be the most valuable aspect of the course. You will notice that the co-leaders strive to time manage during the course so that all of the different components of each session are adequately covered. Last year, we encouraged participants to jump in with questions or comments at any point during the session. But at the end of the year, the feedback was that many people didn't like this as the flow of the session was sometimes disrupted. This year, we'll ask you to save your questions and comments to the 2 designated periods. At these times, please put up your hand and the co-leaders will keep track of the order in which you did so. When you share, please try the following: the 1 breath sharing rule. And remember that the Monday Boeing group is an opportunity to express yourself more fully. And so you should come to that group. We schedule 10 practice sessions throughout the year in which we set aside a much longer period of time for one of the co-leaders and a volunteer to work together using personal examples to put into practice the material we're learning. If you'd like to volunteer for a practice, please email us. We'll take volunteers on a first email, first practice basis. Any sharing of emotional material can have a significant effect on other course participants. Many course participants have had traumatic experiences in their lives, and emotions associated with these experiences may be triggered when hearing other people who have had similar experiences talking about their traumas. Take this into account and use the tools, skills, and strategies that you will learn in this course to recognize and to try to regulate your feelings when you're sharing or listening to someone who's sharing. Will help you stay emotionally regulated. When you feel triggered by something in the course and go into fight, flight, or freeze, rather than acting on these emotions and thoughts, take this as an opportunity to try to understand what happened and to practice regulating yourself. And the co-leaders will be happy to help you do this. Some learning challenges. In this course, we strive to create an effective learning environment. This involves paying attention to factors such as safety and comfort, engagement, inclusivity, clear expectations, supportive relationships, feedback and assessment, flexibility, encouragement of critical thinking, and positive reinforcement. Your contributions to creating such an environment are essential, and we encourage you to view challenges as opportunities for growth. Perseverance will lead to improvement, and mistakes are just a natural part of the learning process. Understand the real-world applications of what you're learning. Help us to create a safe and inclusive atmosphere where everyone feels comfortable and safe. Collaborate and respect your peers. recognize and celebrate yours and other people's achievements, both big and small. Positive feedback can boost confidence and motivation. Approach the course with a sense of wonder and curiosity and set achievable goals for yourself. You don't have to understand everything to benefit from the course. And that brings us to the homework for the coming week, which is, and you can take a screenshot, you can put out your phone and take a picture. These slides are on the website. But please read page 1 to 13 of the DBT Skills Training Workbook. That's this one. The second edition. Joan and Nicole will cover these pages next week. Read the gray simple manual session 3 and submit questions, comments, and feedback to us, or if you'd like to volunteer for a practice session, to itssimple2023@gmail.com. Do you want me to carry that? Sure. This is what we'll do next week. In part 1, we'll review the skills training workbook, page 1 to 13, which covers 5 topics. The DBT overview of the treatment, who the DBT skills training workbook is for. Basic distress tolerance skills, what are they? About this chapter, how to use this chapter, take a rest. And in part 2, we'll introduce the 4 simple strategies covered in the simple manual. Part 3 will introduce the first tool, the crisis plans, and also covered in the simple manual session 3. And there I am again. So this is my summary of the session, and I'll do this at the end of every session. This is what I consider to be the key points, what you should take away from everything you've heard today. And as I said, this will be sent out in an email, a copy of my summary. So today was an orientation and overview of the simple course. The co-leaders discussed the format of the course and what participants need to know to succeed. We learned what SIMPLE stands for: structured, integrative, mindful psychotherapy that's learned easily. We gave you the email address and the YouTube channel. We heard about the Boyne group. It's a drop-in or in-person online to help participants review and practice the material, Mondays 1 to 2:30, and that's at the medical building, 444 Darrow Street, 2nd floor boardroom. We became familiar with the poem, There's a Hole in My Sidewalk, which is the central metaphor in the course. Basically, the simple course aims to help you identify, become more aware of, get out of, avoid, and repair some of the holes in your sidewalk, some of the holes that you keep falling into. It aims to help you expand your window of emotional tolerance, heal your trauma, and live a full life. That's why we're here. And the simple course is broken into 6 parts. There's the psychological theory, which is understanding your mind, learning the DBT skills from the workbook, learning the 6 tools from the gray textbook, learning the techniques and strategies needed for using the tools and skills, practicing, applying the skills, tools, and strategies to your life, your everyday life. And at the end, in the new year, we're going to use IFS, Internal Family Systems, to help heal our trauma. And hopefully that's what you've taken away from today.
Kate always gets applause when she's there. Okay, I think we have, this is like, I can't believe we just finished 15 minutes too, so we have time for questions. Do you guys want to come up as well? Answer any questions that people might have?
Should I be ending the recording now?
Yes, please.
Okay. I will
thank
do
you.
that.